Welcome to the program. Wildfires in Los Angeles have killed at least 10 people as officials warn more high winds could further fan the flames. The wind forecasts and drought conditions mean a red flag warning indicating critical fire conditions is in place across Southern California. 5 fires are still burning and a man has been detained on suspicion of starting the latest. The skies buzzing with aircraft dropping retardant and water on the flaming hills. The two largest fires, the Palisades and Eaton fires, have destroyed more than 9,000 homes and other structures and formed a pincer around the city so enormous that it was visible from space. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass, who was on an official trip to Ghana when the fires broke out, has come under sharp criticism for her initial absence and response to a series of raging wildfires. Other officials, Los Angeles Fire Chief Kristen Crowley and California Senator Adam Schiff, gave updates at a news conference on the inferno.
There are currently 5,316 structures that were damaged or destroyed. And unfortunately, our thoughts and prayers go out to the families. We do have a confirmed 2 fatalities that are now due to this incident. We are now actively engaged in a new brush fire. We're calling it the Kenneth Fire in the West Hills area of Los Angeles on the border of Ventura County. This fire was over 50 acres upon arrival, with the potential for rapid growth over the next hour. Over 60 fire companies from the Los Angeles City Fire Department, LA County Fire Department, and Ventura County Fire Department were initially dispatched to the specific incident. Additional resources have been requested and are en route.
There is a new fire, unfortunately, in West Hills, pushing into Ventura County, and we are expecting this fire to rapidly spread due to high winds. This is a reminder that this is a very dynamic situation that can change quickly. The priority for all Angelenos remains stay safe and please follow directions from the public safety officials. When you are told to evacuate, please evacuate. When you don't evacuate, you compromise the abilities of the first responders, one, to address this crisis. You put yourself in danger and you put others in danger. There's going to be zero tolerance for anybody that would be, I don't even know how to say this, but that would dare to enter houses or loot property or anything from the individuals or from structures that remain standing. I was with D.A. Hochman this morning, and he made it very clear that if anybody is involved in looting or any property damage, that he is ready to prosecute to the full extent of the law. We're already looking ahead to aggressively rebuild. The city of Los Angeles will lead in this effort in the areas that are impacted by the city. We are going to clear the red tape and unnecessary delays and cost and headaches that people experience in ordinary times so that we can rebuild your homes quickly.
We'll stay with the briefing on public developments in Los Angeles. County officials say the number of structures damaged or destroyed by the Eaton fire, one of 2 massive Los Angeles wildfires still burning uncontained, now stands between 4,000 to 5,000. A request has been made for National Guard support and a crew would be implemented. A curfew will be implemented, both of which are expected to help deter looters who have taken advantage of the fires. The Palisades fire between Santa Monica and Malibu on the city's western flank and Eaton fire in the east near Pasadena already rank as the most destructive in Los Angeles history, consuming nearly 31,000 acres or some 48 square miles, turning entire neighborhoods into ash.
The Eaton fire is now estimated to be 13,690 acres. It's grown since our morning press conference because the fire is making a run towards the historic Mount Wilson area. We are still at 0% containment, but we now have a better estimation of the number of fire personnel assigned to the incident. We're now at 1,527 personnel assigned, and like this morning, additional mutual aid resources to continue to arrive to assist in the firefight. This morning, we did have a firefighter suffer a significant injury in a fall. That firefighter is resting comfortably at an area hospital. He's in stable condition, and he is expected to make a full recovery. We now have a confirmation that we have a potential for over 4,000 to 5,000 structures damaged or destroyed.
So I want everyone to know that the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department has officially requested the support of the California National Guard for both fires, at least in LA County, both the Palisades and Eaton fire. I also want to mention that our team has been working on a curfew. Our goal is to attempt to implement a curfew within the specific impacted areas around the two fire areas, both for Palisades and Eaton. As we work through the legal process to get that done, the goal is to try and implement it tonight. If we're not able to do that, that may happen maybe by tomorrow night.
Well, U.S. President Joe Biden says the federal government would be covering 100% of recovery costs for the Los Angeles fires for 180 days. This includes support funding for debris removal, hazard mitigation, and measures to safeguard lives and property. The president also says he will ask Congress to help in tackling the raging fires in Los Angeles, adding that lawmakers will have to step up to provide more assistance in handling the situation.
Thousands of houses, schools, businesses burned to the ground. Communities wiped out, lives lost, families forever changed. They were the worst fires that ever hit Los Angeles, ever. And as soon as these fires broke out, I approved the Fire Management Assistance Grants. That's a term of art and how we get help for local officials. These grants cover California's firefighting costs for things like firefighting equipment, firefighters' salaries, and special capabilities like aircraft. Next, yesterday I immediately approved Governor Newsom's request for what they call, and I know this is all sounds like government talk, but it's called the Major Disaster Declaration. This declaration allows folks, at the request of the governor, the declaration allows folks who have been impacted to get immediate cash assistance to cover things like everything from groceries to baby formula to prescriptions, because as you've seen and you reported, a lot of these places are burned to the ground. There's not a single thing left in their homes. So today I'm announcing that the federal government will cover 100% of the cost for 180 days. This is going to pay for things like debris and hazard material removal, temporary shelters, first responders' salaries, and all necessary measures to protect life and property. And folks, I want to underscore, I told the governor and local officials, spare no expense to do what they need to do and contain these fires and in their communities that have really been devastating.
It's been a mix of emotions for those who were evacuated and returning home during the first full day since high winds in Los Angeles blew the Eaton fire from the foothills into the urban community of Altadena. For someone like Alisa Johnson, a lifelong resident of West Altadena who grew up playing on the streets, they are now filled with charred debris and ash she has no home to return to. She said she was initially optimistic when she left her family's home that has been passed down through generations, that the fire department would manage to stave off the fire from reaching the large amount of homes it eventually burned. But that mood has since changed.
But nothing prepares you for this amount of destruction. I mean, there's no manual, there's no book. that night when we left, it was so frightening. You could barely see I could barely see my hand in front of me because the visibility was so bad and the winds were whipping just ferociously. The Pasadena fire chief needs to be fired. The captain, whatever his title is, the guy that was standing in front of the microphone and giving us excuses and talking about how squirrely the winds were, all of that was, in my humble opinion, was tomfoolery and BS, kind of crap, because we all know how weird and squirrely the winds are. This wasn't our first time at it, right? Mm-hmm. Again, I'm going back to the question of how come there wasn't enough ground personnel? You know you're going to have a wind event. You're going to attach a fire advisory to it. The probability of you being able to fly the planes that is needed to combat a fire is probably 0. So when you remove the air component, what do you have left? You need a ground game. East side was Caucasian, west side was black and other. Okay, that's the history of Altadena. And it feels like, again, facts aren't feelings, that they just said it's on the west side, so F them.
Another family from Altadena, California returned to the remains of their home after it was burned by the Eaton fire. Jess Willard, in the video there, is reminiscing over the home that his mother bought, who held memories for himself and his children, memories he will hold even more dearly now. He said he is more particular and happy that everyone is safe.
I moved here when I was in the 8th grade, when I was 12 or 13. I'm 61 now. And my children, they all lived here recently. They all lived here, and I actually lived in LA. And it caught on fire, and here we are looking for things that my mom asked me to come look for, but I haven't found anything yet. Well, I thought I was going to be sadder, but I'm actually happy that everybody's safe, and I'm looking at just everything. I've been here since 1977. So I'm looking at everything, the things that we added, furniture. There used to be white furniture, and it's really just where everything is. And I haven't lived here in many years, but I can still see what everything was.
Well, in the face of the raging fire, One Pacific Palisades house is still standing tall. The 65-year-old owner, John Carr, has been a local resident living in the house and was passed down to him by his parents. It's just one of the handful of properties still standing after the Palisades wildfire ripped through the neighborhood this week, leaving the community virtually unrecognizable. Carr says he's never witnessed anything like the blaze that ravaged his neighborhood on Tuesday. Armed with his organizational skills, his history of being a pilot, and past experiences, Carr has decided to ignore ignored the evacuation orders, hunkered down, and fought the fire with water that he doused his home with in an attempt to save the lasting memories of his parents.
Well, it's devastating. I've lived here my whole life. I know these people that lived in all these houses. I know the houses. This is my memories, and they're gone. But, unfortunately, this is California, and California is a desert, and you get fires like this. This is natural. The house was built by my mother and father in 1960, and I lived here my whole life, so there's a lot of memories here. And I think I owed it to them as well to try my best to save it, but some things in life are worth fighting for, I mean, if I were to lose this house, it would be very difficult to afford to be able to build a new house, to pay the enormous property taxes they have here. What would I do? Yes, I was awake all night, all day. Got a little bit of sleep after things calmed down a little bit, after all the houses burned down. I did probably hurt a rib jumping the fence over there, but I'll have to see a doctor when I get back. When I was out here hosing the house down and getting ready, and when the houses started to burn, I didn't see one single fire truck out here at all. Zero. If they had some fire trucks and just put a squirt here, a squirt there, and kept an eye on things, all these houses would be here now. I'm telling you right now, I saw with my own eyeballs. All these houses, the houses behind me, they're all gone. They started with one little spark, one little small fire. They just squirted those out, had a few people out there, they'd all be here now. Well, I'll leave that to other people to decide. I did what I needed to do. I did what I wanted to do. I did what I thought I could do, and that's what I did. Well, actually, they've been very gracious. The neighbor over here thanked me for saving his house, and the neighbor over here thanked me. So, thanks is plenty.
Well, around this time, a lot of national and global events are being rescheduled as a result of these wildfires that are taking place in Los Angeles, California. And that includes the NBA postponing its game between the Lakers and the Charlotte Hornets in Los Angeles, while NFL's Los Angeles Rams decided to move their own game to Monday, playoff game to Arizona. There's been no makeup date, however, for the NBA game, which has been announced yet. The Lakers head coach, J.J. Redick, lost his house in the Pacific Palisades neighborhood of Los Angeles. NFL playoff game between the Minnesota Vikings and Los Angeles Rams will now be played in Arizona after wildfires ravaged the region. And a special mass for the victims of the Los Angeles wildfires, drawing worshippers in prayer as the two wildfires continue to burn uncontained in the city. At the service, Los Angeles Archbishop Jose Gomez of the Cathedral of Our Lady of the Angels welcomed clergy members from the Corpus Christi Catholic Church in Pacific Palisades, which was destroyed by fires. Corpus Christi Catholic Church's Monsignor Liam Kidney said the community would recover, while Archbishop Jose Gomez called for reflection on the gift of the love of God.
Angels keep their watch of wandering love.
Let us continue reflecting on that beautiful gift of the
Our correspondent Maria Bird has been our eyes and ears on the ground, even though she is in Washington. Maria, thanks for joining us again, and thanks for keeping us updated about what's going on in Los Angeles, California. Today we're focusing, on the survivors, those who have had, who had to evacuate as a result of the fires, who had to move to safety, but returning home, they're seeing nothing left. The burden of emotions, I know some of them smile in the videos, but going on inside is this chaos about where to begin, where to go from here.
Yes, you're exactly correct. They are just overwhelmed with emotion. As you hear, many people have lived in these homes for generations. Many of these individuals have worked really tirelessly hard. Those that are aware of the real estate market in Los Angeles, it's extremely expensive. So home ownership is one of the great prides of many residents of California. And we know that this is a stumbling block for individuals that, are still working. They still have families to care for, and to think of yourself without your home. But we heard the president mention that there will be all types of emergency funding available for individuals who have lost their home, who just need basic everyday necessities, being able to finalize and ensure that they receive that funding. Oftentimes, part of the challenge is being able to ensure that people that really need the funding receive the funding. And so FEMA is working very hard to try to ensure that those funding mechanisms, that people are able to get them without much trouble, and they're able to get them immediately. So they're not waiting days and weeks to be able to afford just basic things, as you heard the president say, diapers, baby formula.
Yes, and if you listen to some of the sound bites that we have played on the show, a number of people blaming authorities for not doing enough. John Carr, the 65-year-old whose house was safe because he stayed back and, sort of protected his home, putting water on the ground so that the fires don't consume his home and that of his neighbors and all of that, said he never saw a fire truck in his area while the fires were burning. Others also, there's been this backlash on government, the mayor being outside of the city while the fires raged, and the fact that California has no water. I mean, they opened the water hydrants and there was no water coming out of those to help douse the fires.
Yes, that's the largest concern. I think not only in California, but across the country, trying to understand the fire hydrants being without water. Many people often state, they say, they're right there at the Pacific, what's the problem? And obviously there's a lot more than just being right there by the Pacific that allows for you to have water within the fire hydrants. And so those are some of the big concerns. There's investigations, obviously, from the federal government to figure out why some of these things are issues for California. As you mentioned, not having the fire trucks, we know that there's 55,000 square miles of damage. And so when you think about the number of fire trucks that are needed to address the fires that are going across Southern California, is quite vast. And obviously there's not enough personnel or potentially even trucks to be able to get out to these communities. And so the question is, how are they prioritizing what communities they're going to ensure safety and security and potentially to disseminate the amount of fire that's occurring? That is, I think, where the governor is going to have to respond to that as well. We also know that the winds have decreased today, but they are expected to pick back up on Sunday. So I'm sure community members and the fire departments and the federal government are looking at ways to be able to extinguish as much of the fire as possible between now and Sunday, so that by Sunday, when the winds pick back up, we're not dealing with this type of major devastation and the ability for this fire to move so quickly throughout other regions.
And not having enough firefighters on the ground makes you wonder, how many government personnel are also on the ground. They talked about curfews, in certain areas, trying to curtail the looting of homes. Some homes have been damaged, but you could still, retrieve a few things. People looting, that also came up yesterday evening. How will they manage this? I know that the sheriff says they're working out modalities, the legal processes and all of that, but it does seem like a real challenge for them.
Correct. And so what you're going to see and what they've discussed is partially the police are obviously on the ground as well. A lot of times you will see when they have communities that have been burned, they will tape off those communities and have police personnel there. And so, you can rest assured that there are likely many police officers in these communities to try to ensure that individuals are not able to get into loot. The greater challenge, though, is that because we're not talking about isolated areas, we're talking about large communities and large areas which have multiple entry points. That does make it a little bit more difficult to rope off those areas to ensure that only individuals who have lived in those communities are able to access those communities. But typically that's what you see. You see police officers are there kind of patrolling the areas, ensuring that only the individuals who live in those areas are able to access those streets and communities. But that is typically the way in which they try to avoid some of the looting. But as you stated before, we're talking about such a large number of homes being burned down that this does become a risk, a larger risk for this specific occurrence.
You're right, Maria. I'm looking at the videos and I'm just seeing, this large expanse of land which used to house some of the most luxurious homes in Los Angeles, homes to many celebrities, homes to many people whose parents even lived in Los Angeles. But I heard some of the authorities earlier talking about they having a suspect in custody, a person who may have been, the reason why these fires happened in the first place?
Yes, and I think that's where we're going to start to see information come out over the weekend. Because if this is something that is dealt with larceny, as we know that there is several laws in place in Southern California, but California as a whole, to address how in which fires are put out, and how fire, if you're doing like small campfires, some of the rules and regulations which are not in place in other parts of the country because of the dryness of the community, because of some of what California's experience with global warming, and not having some of the amounts of rain that's needed to kind of ensure that they're not as dry and susceptible to these types of fires. And so as we learn more, I think that will create obviously major concerns for the government, but also definitely for the community. As we've seen, this has gone well beyond just one isolated event. This has definitely devastated the entire area of Southern California.
Really hard to watch, Maria. Thanks again for joining us, and thank you for all the updates this week. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has been sentenced to unconditional discharge, meaning he has spared jail time and a fine. It's related to the President-elect's New York felony conviction for falsifying business records. Trump himself is not in court, but appeared stony-faced, sitting alongside his lawyer via video link. The prosecution requested no prison, probation, or fine as a sentence, exactly what the judge ruled. Trump says this has been a terrible experience and he's totally innocent, while his attorney said the charges never should have been brought up. Judge Juan Machon called it an extraordinary case and a paradox with a lot of attention but ordinary court proceedings. Last May, Trump was convicted on 34 counts relating to hush money paid to adult film star Stormy Daniels. Paying hush money is not illegal in New York. The charges stem from how Trump reimbursed his lawyer, who paid Daniels. Daniels was paid $130,000 to keep quiet about a claim that she had sex with Trump. Trump has denied that they did have intercourse. Paying hush money is not illegal, but the charges do stem from how he paid his lawyer, who was the one who paid Stormy Daniels. That would be Michael Cohen. And just before today's hearing, the president-elect told journalists he respects the court's opinion. A court had turned down Trump's last-minute bid to prevent his sentencing scheduled for Friday today in New York, in just 10 days before his inauguration for his second term as president. Trump also commented on the video that circulated of him appearing to speak amicably with former President Barack Obama when both were seated next to each other at memorial services for former U.S. President Jimmy Carter.
Thank you very much. Well, they called for an appeal, and as you know, they acknowledge what the judge said about no penalty, and there's no penalty. But we're going to appeal anyway, just psychologically, because frankly, it's a disgrace. It's a judge that shouldn't have been on the case. He's a highly conflicted judge, and they called for an appeal. So I read it, and I thought it was a fair decision, actually. So I'll do my little thing tomorrow. They can have fun with their political opponent. As you know, I'm under a gag order from a judge. This is the first. This was an attack of a political opponent. And if you take a look at it, I'm not supposed to be talking about it, so I won't. I'm the first president and probably one of the first candidates in history that's under attack with a gag order, where I'm not allowed to speak about something. And they ought to find out what that's all about. And this is a long way from finished. And I respect the court's opinion. I think it was actually a very good opinion for us because you saw what they said. But they invited the appeal, and the appeal is on the bigger issue. So we'll see how it all works out. I think it's going to work out well. It did look very friendly, I must say. I didn't realize it. I didn't realize it, how friendly it looked. I saw it on your wonderful network just a little while ago before I came in, and I said, boy, they look like two people that like each other. And we probably do. We have little different philosophies, right? But we probably do. I don't know, we just got along. But I got along with just about everybody on that. We met backstage, as you know, before we went on. And I thought it was a beautiful service, but we all got along very well, which is good.
U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, now Jimmy Carter's remains, have returned to his hometown of Plains, Georgia, after a state funeral in Washington, D.C. The Democrat, who served one term in the White House from 1977 to 1981, died on December 29th at the age of 100. The former Georgia peanut farmer struggled with a bad economy and the Iran hostage crisis while in office and was handily defeated for re-election by Republican Ronald Reagan. In the decades since, he earned a reputation as a committed humanitarian and is widely seen as a better former president than he was president. He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 2002, and over the last 2 days, tens of thousands of Americans have visited the U.S. Capitol Rotunda to honor him, remembering him as a symbol of decency and humility amid today's polarized political climate. Back in Georgia, Carter has been honored with a funeral service at Maranatha Baptist Church in Plains, attended by family, friends, and community members. His remains were transported there and will be moved from there to his residence, where he will be buried.
Ex-president, governor.
And we're back to the president-elect Donald Trump, who says a meeting is being arranged between himself and Russian President Vladimir Putin. The U.S. president-elect gave no timeline for when the meeting might take place, but says President Putin wants to meet and it's being set up. He made the remarks at his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida. The Kremlin says in response it is open to talks, but no details have been confirmed yet. Trump has promised to negotiate an end to the war in Ukraine soon after he takes office on January 20 and expressed skepticism about U.S. military and financial support for Kyiv. Meanwhile, a spokesperson for the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry said that Kyiv expects high-level talks to take place with the Trump administration after the inauguration, and that includes an eventual meeting between Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Denmark has acknowledged it had long neglected the defense of Greenland, a vast and strategically important Arctic island, after President-elect Donald Trump said acquiring the Danish sovereign territory is vital for U.S. security. Trump, who takes office in just a few days, said this week that U.S. control of Greenland is an absolute necessity and does not rule out using military or economic action against Denmark. While Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen told a press conference earlier she had asked for a meeting with President-elect Trump and does not expect one to happen ahead of his inauguration. But she summoned leaders of Denmark's political parties to a meeting for a briefing about Trump's renewed interests. She's rebuffed another offer from Trump in 2019 to buy Greenland. Greenland has been controlled by Denmark for centuries, though its 57,000 population now govern their own domestic affairs. Well, to the President of the United States, Joe Biden, he says real progress is being made towards a Gaza deal as negotiators try to reach a ceasefire accord between Israel and Hamas. On Thursday, President Biden said he spoke to Lebanon's new President Joseph Aoun, saying he's a first-rate guy. They're also working very hard.
I can, but I'm not sure it's appropriate for now. We're making some real progress. I met with negotiators today. I think there's what's going on right now in Lebanon, and we finally have a president. He's a first-rate guy. I spent time on the phone with him today, about 20 minutes to a half an hour, what they have planned. They're also working very hard with the Lebanese military, accountable to the Lebanese people, not Hamas, not Hezbollah, not any other group. And so I think we're seeing some progress. And I know hope springs eternal, but I think I'm still hopeful that we'll be able to have a prisoner exchange. Hamas is the one getting in the way of that exchange right now, but I think we may be able to get that done.
Well, staying a bit more in the region, Israel confirms a hostage found killed in Gaza was Hamza Ziadneh, the son of another hostage, Youssef Ziadneh, found dead alongside him in an underground tunnel near the southern city of Rafah. The family of Hamza, an Israeli Bedouin taken hostage by Hamas-led fighters alongside his father, had been notified of his death following the conclusion of forensic tests, according to the Israeli military. Only the death of Youssef Ziadneh was announced on Wednesday, as the military was still analyzing evidence concerning Hamza. The military earlier said the bodies were recovered close to those of armed guards from Islamist group Hamas or another Palestinian militant group, adding their deaths did not appear to have been recent and it's not clear how they had been killed. There was no immediate comment from Hamas regarding this. The recovery of their bodies comes amid renewed efforts by mediators, Qatar, the US, and Egypt to reach a deal to halt fighting in Gaza and free the remaining Israeli hostages before President-elect Donald Trump takes office on January 20. Well, the families of hostages killed in Gaza have made another plea to world leaders in Tel Aviv, demanding a deal to bring all remaining hostages back. The Israeli military announced on Wednesday the body of Youssef Ziadneh, an Israeli Bedouin taken hostage by Hamas-led fighters on October 7, 2023, had been found in a tunnel. We have updates on that, which we've just read. But the confirmation of Youssef Ziadneh's death brings the number of remaining hostages to 99.
We implore all world leaders to make a deal and bring all 99 remaining hostages home. They represent 23 different nations. They are Christians, Jews, Muslims, Hindus, and Buddhists. I will end by asking all of our leaders the first question posed by God in the Bible in Genesis to man. Where are you? Bring them home now.
We are seeing that every day there is more and more hostages in Gaza that are being murdered, being killed, and we can't save them, and we want to save them and to bring them back alive here into Israel. And the way to do that is to get into a deal that will bring them home. This is not happening for more than a year, and we are shouting out loud here that we need to get into a deal that will release the hostages. There won't be a perfect deal, but it should be a deal that brings them home. We can't wait for a perfect deal. We don't have the time. We need to take those people out of this hell. They are suffering there and they are dying there every second.
Well, back in Gaza, Palestinians searched through the rubble of a building in Nosriat following an Israeli strike which killed several people. A man at the site said he woke up to a rocket or barrel bomb. Nearly 46,000 Palestinians have been killed in Israel's assault on Gaza, according to health officials. The assault was launched after Hamas fighters stormed Israeli territory on October 7, killing 1,200 people. In Germany and many parts of Europe, the coldest months have arrived. These winter months are particularly hard for Germany's increasingly homeless population. According to our latest government data, there are more than 500,000 people nationwide without a proper home. For more on this, we're joined by the Deutsche Welle's correspondent Vada Imran, who's in Berlin. Vada, great to see you and a Happy New Year. 500,000 people and more. That's a big number. What are the reasons for growing homelessness, especially in Germany?
Thanks for having me. This report looks at data collected in 2024, which said that there are more than 531,000 people homeless across Germany. The trends were quite similar in both urban and rural areas. Now, if you look at the reasons behind the growing number of homeless people, the biggest reason, reported by 60% of the people, is loss of housing. This may be due to eviction, inability to pay rent, and separation from a rent-paying partner. Women reported domestic violence as one of the reasons they left home. People who sleep on the streets reported substance abuse and said they now experienced permanent mental impairment. And this group is very vulnerable to dangerous situations and discrimination. And then there's the hidden homeless population. And these are people who are not in a shelter and not on the streets, but are sleeping on friends' couches, staying with friends and family, and jumping around without a permanent home. Germany has a large number of hidden homeless people as well, over 60,000 people. These numbers are from the German government. Other organizations and NGOs say the real numbers are much higher.
Indeed, much higher numbers, Vada. But what is the government doing to combat this and to help provide better options for people?
People without a permanent home are some of the most vulnerable in any country. They face violence, discrimination, and get little help from the authorities. Germany wants to address this problem, and seriously. In April last year, they set forth an action plan to end homelessness in the next 5 years, by the year 2030. This plan is quite elaborate and will require the government to commit billions of euros to this cause. The biggest focus is on making affordable housing available. The government is ready to put in 20 billion euros on social housing projects by the year 2028. There is already a housing crisis in Berlin with skyrocketing rents, and there are thousands queuing for every apartment. At the same time, the number of people sleeping on the subway or under a tunnel has monumentally increased. The government plans to expand on social programs to support children of homeless people as well, and aim to increase the general standard of emergency shelters. There's also much to be done to develop better care facilities that are currently available. So whoever forms the next government will have a lot on their plate.
And if we look largely at Europe, is it still the same for other major countries?
Unfortunately, yes. France has the highest homelessness rate in Europe per 10,000 people, with Germany and Czech Republic trailing. But the patterns differ. For example, in Ireland and Denmark, the homeless people are mainly found in temporary shelters and accommodations. This is different from Germany or Portugal, where large numbers, tens of thousands, live and sleep in tents on the streets. Finland is the only EU country that took active steps to put a roof over the heads of homeless people and make doctors, psychologists, and nurses available to them. However, I do have to say it's very hard to talk about this issue in pure numbers, because all data collected by official authorities are like a snapshot and only capture the numbers at the precise time of the study. But in reality, the numbers often fluctuate and become bigger on closer inspection. That's why we would have to do year-long studies to have meaningful data. And with whatever data we do have, homelessness has doubled in most EU countries. And so NGOs are urging member states to come up with proper policies to tackle this issue.
Well, they have between this winter and next. Vada, thanks again for joining us on the program. We're going back now to one of our major stories, and that's the sentencing to unconditional discharge of U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. He's been spared jail time. Trump himself is not in court, but he appeared alongside his lawyer via a video link. The prosecution requested no prison, probation, or fine as a sentence, exactly what the judge ruled. Trump says it's been a terrible experience and he's totally innocent, while his attorney says the charges never should have been brought up. Judge Juan Merchan called it an extraordinary case and a paradox with a lot of attention about ordinary court proceeding. Paying hush money is not illegal in New York. The charges stem from how Trump reimbursed his lawyer, Michael Cohen, who paid Stormy Daniels. Let's speak to national security law and foreign relations expert Joanna Lulong. She is in Washington. Joanna, and we've been talking about this all week, haven't we? It appears today has gone on pretty uneventfully. I don't know whether it's because of the fires in Los Angeles or because of Jimmy Carter's burial. But the conviction and the sentencing, they all still leave an indelible mark on Donald Trump's profile, don't they?
Absolutely, absolutely. And there will be political ramifications as a result of this, right? His political opponents will certainly use this for the next 4 years. And as you know, Amarachi, under New York law, you're not actually considered a convicted felon on the day that you are convicted of the crime. It's actually the day that you are sentenced. So now his political opponents can actually use this and call him a convicted felon. And now the talking points by the Democrats and and other groups will be the United States has a convicted felon running the Oval Office. That's going to be the label that he has. I also going to cast a doubt on the integrity of our institutions, right? Because again, with this label, folks are going to use that to kind of undermine and challenge the presidency. But as you know, his supporters maintain that this is certainly a witch hunt. This should have never happened to begin with. The case should have never been brought before the judge. He should have never been convicted. So this is part of the entire witch hunt of Mr. Trump. So to Mr. Trump, this doesn't signify much of anything, but it certainly will cast a doubt on his presidency for the next 4 years and certainly beyond.
Indeed. And everyone who was involved in this case, his lawyer, Michael Cohen, the one who he reimbursed the $130,000, and then Rudy Giuliani, his personal lawyer, both of them have fallen off, it appears, in this case. And Trump is the only person standing. Even Stormy Daniel has been paid off, has had, I think she had, TV interviews for which she was paid and all of that. It does seem that everybody else seems to cut a deal in this incident, but except Trump. And just wondering why it is that he's the only one standing. Why is he the only one who faces the law at the end of the day?
I think some could say that it's because this was indeed a political witch hunt. The reason why the case was brought forth to begin with was so that it could undermine his campaign. As you know, running for the presidency, that could be an argument that could be made. It also could speak to Mr. Trump's perseverance, commitment, because we have seen others around him who have gone to jail for various reasons. We have seen folks whose properties have been seized due to their connection with Mr. Trump and some of the crimes that they have been convicted of, right? But yet we saw Mr. Trump, although he was convicted on this particular matter, he served no jail time, right? So unconditional discharge, meaning that he's not going to jail, he's not going to pay a fine, he just gets to walk away. And the only thing that happens to Mr. Trump is having that label as a convicted felon, which is something that he was trying to fight really hard. So as you know, Amarachi, he challenged this all the way to the Supreme Court, saying that, hey, let's have the sentence hearing after the inauguration, because I'm pretty busy right now getting ready to run the United States of America. And the Supreme Court said no, the court can go ahead with the sentencing. So I think he really did not want to have that label at the end of the day, but ultimately that's what the judge decided. And obviously Mr. Trump is entitled to appeal this decision, which I expect him to appeal the case completely to its entirety, not just the sentencing aspect of it, but the entire case.
And knowing Trump, this might be one of the first talking points when he becomes president. Thanks again, Joanna, for speaking with us.
Thank you, Amarachi. Always a pleasure.
And as we end the program, China is where we make our final stop. Zhang Aiqing from Kunming, Yunnan, has spent 36 years directing traffic as a tribute to his loved ones lost in tragic accidents. The 75-year-old has dedicated his life to promoting traffic safety, ensuring no one else endures such pain after losing his wife, 4 children, and sister to road incidents. Every day outside Yan'an Hospital, he manages the bustling junction like a dedicated traffic officer. His promise to continue to be an amateur traffic policeman until he can no longer move. The tragic timeline of Zhang's losses began in 1990 when a car accident took his sister's life. 6 years later, another devastating accident claimed the lives of his wife and their children, 2 sets of twins. The series of heart-wrenching events ignited Zhang's determination to promote traffic safety in his community. His presence on the streets has become a familiar sight for many locals who have grown up watching him guide traffic. Despite the occasional mistakes he makes, the traffic office police recognizes his efforts and allows him to contribute. That is a really heartwarming story. Thanks for watching The World Today. I'm Amarachi Ubani.